that's the thing I love about sports in general, the Olympics in particular. You get to just enjoy and celebrate the humanity of others. You realize that there's so much more that we have in common than separates us, and it's.
Well, welcome everyone to this next exclusive interview with Masters of the Game. And today I get to introduce you to someone I've been wanting to talk to for a long time and was introduced through a mutual friend of mine, a man named Devon Harris. Now, he's listening right now, so I got to brag on him a little bit before I welcome him to the interview. But let me tell you a little bit about Devon. He is an original member of the 1988 Jamaican Bobsled team. If you've seen the movie Cool Runnings, like this is one of the guys in it, right? What it's based off of. He was a captain of the 1992 and 1998 teams, a three-time Olympian. He achieved his dream, right? His current dream is to inspire others to achieve theirs. He's now an inspirational and international motivational keynote speaker. And he's tapping into the same energy, determination, and skills that enabled him to bobsled with the best in the world. And now is sparking audiences of all ages to dream big and take their game to the next level. We're going to dive into that today. Now, a little bit about his background, where he came from. He was actually born on Christmas Day, 1964. He was raised in a violent ghetto environment called the Olympic Gardens in Kingston, Jamaica. And I love this part of it, right? And he and I talked about this before we got on today, but the greatest gift he ever received was a belief that a positive attitude and a never say die philosophy would carry him farther than a sense of injustice and a heart filled with anger. He is a graduate from the prestigious Royal Military Academy, Sandhurst in England, received a Queen's Commission in December 1985, and served in the Officer Corps of the Jamaican Defense Force until December 1992, when he retired as a captain. And as I said, now speaks around the world. I could go on and on, but Devon, thank you so much for spending your time with me. Excited to have you here today.
Hey, Mike, it's great to be here, man. Thank you for having me. And thank you for all those really nice things you just made up about me. It sounds good.
Well, it sounds great, right? Yeah. As we talked before, it's really interesting how you grew up in the Olympic Gardens, which sounds lovely. Yeah. It sounds like this, I don't know, just like beautiful garden with flowers and trees and fruit growing and all these sorts of things. And that was the furthest thing from the truth, correct?
Yeah, I joke about that all the time, that I grew up in Olympic Gardens, that it sounds like a fitting place for a future Olympian to have grown up. And yes, it does conjure up those images, right? Gardens. But it really was a tough, gritty, violent ghetto environment in which I grew up in, especially back late 70s, early 80s, as I started to become a teenager, and the crime and violence was just kind of on the rise during that time. And I often joke that at nights when I didn't hear gunshots, I knew it was time to get up and get ready for school. But that was just kind of the violent nature of Olympic Gardens back then. The thing that kept me sane was that I really loved school. Not because I was a brainiac, I just loved playing. I mean, I did okay. I did crack a couple of books, but school was where you could play, man, and just have fun and be a child, and work hard actually, and be validated as well. So it became my favorite all the way through.
That's amazing. Well, it seems like that was kind of a safe place for you to your point, be a kid, not worry in that school environment.
Yeah. I'm very fortunate to have grown up in Jamaica because years ago I was speaking in San Diego, I want to say, in California somewhere, to a school group, all these administrators and so on. And I'd just come back from Jamaica, and I was actually visiting my high school, and it was around about 9:30, 10 at night. And the school was buzzing with activity, The volleyball team was there, the basketball team, the drama club, and just people. I got transported back to my days in school, and how just kind of free flowing it was, and how inviting and such a safe space, which does not exists in America. The bell rings and you better be on that bus and be out off the campus.
Yes.
So I was very fortunate to have that, and certainly, I talk about my high school years from the ninth grade, and we have a slightly different system, but from the ninth grade until the 13th grade when I, finally graduated from school. Dude, I was in school almost 6 days a week, 5 days regular school. And on Saturdays, there was always something to do. It was track practice or French club or the quiz team or anything to keep me out of Olympic Gardens. So it became my haven for sure.
Absolutely. Well, and, I think going from Olympic Gardens to the Olympics, right? That's a big jump. And soccer was your love, or football, I should say, was
football. Yeah.
One of the football is life, as happens in the Ted Lasso show. But talk to me about, soccer and the other sports that you played growing up, and what was that like for you? What positions did you play? How did you set your foundation for athletics early on prior to Olympics?
Yeah, so I actually discovered sports in elementary school, and football, soccer. And the thing that immediately and kind of intuitively knew about sports was how level the playing field was, in a sense. Like, it really was about your skill and your talent, and more importantly, your heart. Are you going to, when you're on that soccer field, or whatever sport it is, what your family background is and what the value of your pocket, your bank account didn't matter. It's like, can you show me what you have? And I was just, I think, fortunate that, I just had some natural abilities, natural inclination to sports. And I excelled in soccer, in elementary school. I don't remember which grade I was in, man, but this one day in particular, bro, nobody could get the ball from me. Like, nobody. It was like the soccer gods touched me that day.
Yes.
And there were some older boys on the side watching, and they're calling me all in Jamaica. Almost everybody has a nickname. And eventually they settled on the nickname Black Pele from Argentina.
Pele, yes.
So, I went through all of elementary school, the rest of my time being called Black Pele. And then I went to high school, and the first day of gym, PE class, the teacher came out with a ball, a soccer ball, and I took it from him. And I threw it in the air, trapped it, and everybody who came, I put a move on them and declared that I was called Black Pele in primary school. And by the end of the class, I clearly had demonstrated that, I earned the name. And then I remember this one guy, he goes, but the real Pele is black. So they dropped the black, and so like everybody in high school called me Pele. But interestingly enough, I ended up not even playing soccer for my high school. Because back then, you had to have your own soccer cleats, and I played barefooted, man. I didn't own soccer. To this day, I've never owned a pair of soccer cleats.
Wow.
So I couldn't go out for the school team, but then you could run barefooted. And so in the 8th grade, I started hanging out around the track team when I was in the 8th grade, not training seriously, just hanging out with them. And then in the 9th grade, I joined the team. Bought myself a really cheap pair of sneakers and started running, and still kept the name Pele, although I was a middle distance runner. So that's one of those in terms of sports, one talent that never really got a chance to develop. I had some natural abilities when it came on to soccer, but just never developed it. I've never played a day of organized soccer. Always pick up.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, so on that note, right, you don't have shoes, like cleats, right? And even running, like, you have minimal equipment, if you will. A lot of kids, I think adults too, would probably look at that and be like, oh, I don't have the right stuff, so I'm just not going to do that thing. Where did that motivation come from to keep playing, even though you didn't have the right equipment for your feet, for running or football?
Yeah, it's not so unusual, though, to be playing sports, especially at that age, barefooted. I wasn't the only guy, but definitely when you talk about trying to go to the next level, representing your school, which is why I ended up not even trying out for the soccer team because I didn't have cleats. But in gym class, in my pickup games, I played barefooted. But and starting out in terms of running, there was no, hey, you can't come out to run because you don't have running spikes. So I just went out and I started out. In the 8th grade, just hanging around, not training seriously, just hanging around the team and running barefooted, and then kind of getting serious in the 9th grade. Saved my lunch money, bought myself a cheap pair of kind of like the original version of Converse. It's one of the really cheap ass shoes though.
Yeah.
Not saying Converse is cheap. I'm just like giving
I get it though.
A visual. And then so as I kind of grew and made the school team, the school gave me running spikes, and I just kind of go from there, train my ass off, and then that kind of became the star of the team. So I had access to the equipment that the school had.
Yes. Did your underlying motivation come from doing whatever it took to get out of Olympic Gardens, or was it something different, Devon?
When it came on to sports, no, that wasn't the motivation. Becoming an Army officer, which I'm sure we'll talk about, was my ticket to getting out of Olympic Gardens.
Okay.
So sports, I just, I've always been good. I was very good at soccer in elementary school. And in high school, I was average. Other guys were better than me. And so I didn't really shine. Plus, I couldn't try for the school team. And then in track, everybody in Jamaica sprints fast, except me. So I'm third, fourth. I'm like, this won't work.
Right. True.
So I tried out when I tried out for the school team, I had ran an 800-meter race, and I ran barefooted. So the first race I'm ever winning, I'm running barefooted. And I remember through the race, like some guys had spikes on, and I'm worried that they might step on my toes. And you hear it's a gravel strewn dirt track. You can hear the spikes, the gravel crunching under the spikes, and you're like worried. But anyway, I won. So the next year, this is 9th grade, I went out for the school team, and the coach asked, so what event are you running? I'm like 800. And he goes, okay, you run the 1500 as well. Never heard of it before. Mm-hmm. But he said, I'm running 1500. So now I became an 800 and 1500 meter runner, which is kind of interesting because he could have just as easily say, okay, you'll run the 400 as well.
Yes.
But he said, you'll run the 1500. So I just started running, man. And that
amazing.
I had this desire to be really good in my school. But then an interesting thing happened too, because this is 1979. And it's a year before the Moscow Olympic Games, 1980. And ABC Wide World of Sports had a series on TV called Road to Moscow. And in it, they highlighted athletes from around the world, different disciplines, different nationalities, ethnicities, etc. And you know how when you think of Olympic athletes, and you think of these superhuman beings. And what stood out from me from that series was how average and ordinary these people were. They had, problems just like you and I, man. They just had all kinds of challenges outside of sports and the challenges that came with trying to qualify for the Olympics. And, how they just kind of pushed through. They just kept going despite all of those challenges. And it kind of dawned on me that, wow, maybe anybody could become an Olympian within reason if you dared to dream big enough and then had an equal desire to work towards it. And that's where the dream of becoming an Olympian was birthed. And so I'm like, okay, maybe I can become the first high school athlete to ever represent Jamaica in the Olympics. So now I'm just wired that way, bro, to want to do what has never been done before. That's something unique. And so I started training. Long story short, I didn't even come close to becoming the first high school athlete to represent Jamaica at the Olympic Games. But
yeah, because you're trying in theory 800 and 1500. Is that the event you're trying to qualify?
And this is, you're talking about 1979. So I was thinking that maybe by 1984 the LA Olympics had been good enough.
Yes,
but yeah, I didn't think I got injured and my track career just took a nosedive. Like almost went downhill as fast as a bobsled did. So,
get up quick.
Yeah.
So how do you bridge between obviously having that dream, I want to go to the Olympics, runner, and there are a lot of people probably listening to this have seen the movie and stuff like that, but it's an unusual shift from warm to cold, right? And how did that conversation even begin? Of hey, what if? Yeah, how did that even start?
So now you have to fast forward. I mentioned that my ticket out of the ghettos was not sports; it was the army.
Yes.
So although the Olympic dreams just kind of dissipated, the thing that drove me the most was, hey, I want to become an army officer. So it's 1984, the Olympics came and went, and I even kind of forgot that I wanted to become an Olympian in a way, because now the most pressing thing, like I was done with high school, is like, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? And it was to join the army. And so I went through a very rigorous selection process and got selected, did my basic training in Jamaica. Then they shipped me off to Sandhurst in England. And I did that, and that's pretty cold, by the way. This is pretty cold setting. At that time, I was aware of the Winter Olympics, and the reason is, in 1984, my final year in high school, I was on the school quiz team. It's kind of like Jeopardy, but for high school.
Yes.
And one of the current affairs questions, the Olympics were happening in Sarajevo. So that's how I became aware of the Winter Olympics. This is 1984. And, kind of knew about bobsledding. It was out there somewhere. It's a winter sport, fast, dangerous. That's it.
Yes.
So if you fast forward, I graduated from Sandhurst. I'm back in Jamaica. I'm 21 years old. And I remember this so well. I'm walking down to the officer's mess, and I'm having this really intense conversation with myself. I'm like, so what are you going to do with the rest of your life, man? You've achieved your big dream. You're an army officer now. What, is this it? Then I'm like, oh, the Olympics. They're coming up in the following year, Seoul, Korea, Seoul. Right? So I'm like, oh, yeah. So now I start running again. I start running in earnest. Like every morning before I reported for duty, I'm running 5 miles. I'm thinking maybe I could get fit enough, right?
Yes.
To get to the Olympics. When about that same time, 2 Americans who lived in Jamaica came up with the idea to start a bobsled team. And one of the things they did was that they came to the army. So I remember on duty, I'm at the headquarters. It was a Friday in August of 1987, and the duty clerk came in with a big stack of mail. And I reached in and I pulled out one piece, the Force Orders, it's called. It's kind of like a newsletter, more important.
Yes.
And I'm reading through it, and it gets to the point about sports, and it said something about those who are interested in undergoing dangerous and rigorous training to represent Jamaica, the upcoming Olympics in Calgary, Canada, in bobsledding, should basically make themselves known. Of course, I knew about Canada, never heard of Calgary.
Yes.
And then I'm like, how the hell are we going to train? I mean, the Olympics are next less than a year away, because this is August 87, right?
Wow.
And I remember thinking to myself, this has to be the most absurd, ridiculous idea ever conceived by man. And I clearly said, I remember a group of us were talking about it, me and fellow young officers. I remember clearly saying, nobody could ever get me to go on one of those things. So
that's really interesting.
Yeah. So here it is now. Like nobody, very few people in the army knew I was an athlete. And when I returned from England, I was not the picture of an athlete. I had a broken ankle. I was recovering from one. Don't judge me. I was young and foolish. I jumped from a plane.
Oh,
I hurt my ankle. I haven't done it since. I learned my lesson.
Yeah. You're a quick learner. Quick learner.
Yeah, painful lessons, but you learn, right?
Yes.
So I go and run this cross country race, and I finish 14 from 40, and they're like, "Oh my God, he's fit." So my colonel now is the one who told me to go to the team trials because of a philosophy in the army that says officers must always participate. And since he had a bunch of young enlisted men going, he figured he'd send his young officer to the team trials as well.
Did you feel it more of a...
Like he sent me to make up numbers, but again, I'm just not wired that way, man. I can't go to the team trials to go, "Oh yeah, I was at the bobsled team trials." It doesn't work for me. So now it's like I go from nobody could ever get me to go on one of those things. So, oh my God, I have to make this team. I don't know how I'm going to make it. I was what I would describe as army fit. I could walk 100 miles with 50 pounds on my back and a rifle in my hand, but I didn't consider myself sports fit. Like the kind of fitness I think you need to qualify for the Olympics. I go to the Olympics, But even so, since I'm going to the team trials, man, I have to make the team. I don't know how I'm going to make it, but I just have to make it. So I went to the team trials and I tried hard, man. I was working hard.
Yep.
And it's just kind of an uphill push, forgive the pun, because it's a little like the NFL combine. You're sprinting 30, 60, 100 meters, 300 meters. I'm a middle distance runner. The only thing that was comfortable for me was a 300-meter run. That's what I did for speed work. So like the 30, the 60, the 100 was, and I'm busting it. I'm trying hard. And then we also had a push test. That's something, you have a makeshift sled on wheels and you have to push it, right? Yes. And I'm thinking to myself, man, if there's one test that has to be the most important, it's this one. And I ended up pushing two fastest pushes. I pushed faster than the fastest sprinter that was there.
Wow.
Yeah. And then they selected me. I think they like my smile as well, So,
you do have a good smile. You have a good smile.
They selected me, yeah. And so that was, that's all. So now I am on track to go to the Olympics in 1988. In fact, I'm ahead of schedule. Now I'm going to the Olympics in February of 88 instead of the summer of 88.
Yes, you're ahead of track.
Yeah.
That's amazing. So first of all, to have a dream like that, right? Because a lot of people in this world, a lot of kids have dreams of getting to the Olympics or playing, a professional sport, whatever that might be. And I don't know, there's just something about it where maybe it's society or something like that tells us not to dream that much, right? Or to take our dreams and, discount them a little bit because, be realistic or all these things. And I mean, you tried the first time for sprinting, you were unable to make it due to injuries, all that sort of stuff. And then this comes around again and the dream just stayed alive. What advice do you have, especially kids, right? Like maybe young athletes, high school athletes, collegiate athletes that want to get to that next level, have that dream, feel that pressure that it's discounted because you had to have experienced that. Mm-hmm. But like personally, and as the bobsled team got up and running, but what advice would you give them to, I don't know, just keep pushing?
That's exactly it, though. You have to keep on pushing. You have to just keep going, as you say. And the thing is, it can be a lonely journey. It was really a very lonely journey for me. I didn't feel like it then, maybe because I was so focused on achieving. But I look back now and I realize how lonely it was. I often joke and say that before Forrest Gump, I was. When I think back to some of the distances I used to be running on my own. It was just me, just going for it because I knew what I want. Just me. Yes. And especially in a neighborhood like mine where, nobody's doing that. It's just me and this single purpose, this focus that, first of all, I wanted. You have these. So you may have the goal of, like I did, of getting to the Olympics, but it's not, you don't get from where you are to the Olympics, boom. So the first thing was to win the national boys championships.
Okay.
Right. And, this is kind of unfortunate for me that I came from a high school that didn't have a really strong sports program. So like when I was making my move nationally in Jamaica, I didn't have, my high school didn't retain a track coach. I was coaching myself though. And, going to the library and reading book on middle distances. And
Wow.
I remember my first, I remember reading about the NCAA. I didn't even know what the hell that means. Like you kind of skip over that part to the important bits.
Yes.
But you have to be willing to do the work. Especially in the younger years. And I'm telling my story. Maybe it works differently for someone else. I think that the single-mindedness and the work ethic I developed at 16, which is the second year after I started running track, with training the way I trained, formed the basis that allowed me to go to the Olympics. Like I knew how to work hard as an athlete. I had developed that, by myself, just running and running and running. The thing I tell young people, students who are dreaming of playing pro sports or go to the Olympics and so on, which is, that's one thing, the training part. But you got to crack a book. you got, like I said, my way out was not sports. It was not a viable way out back then. Mm-hmm. It was to become an army officer. And for that, it doesn't matter how fast I could run an 800-meter race. That wasn't going to do it. I had to crack a book. I needed my education because that's what opened the door for me. And interestingly enough, it's that very education that opened the door for me to become an army officer that then opened the side door to me to become an Olympic or Winter Olympian. Because I'm pretty sure that if I wasn't in the army, I wouldn't have had the opportunity.
Right.
Even if Jamaica had a bobsled team and I was out there doing some menial job because I didn't take care of business in school, it would be like, I wouldn't have seen myself. I couldn't have seen myself going to the bobsled team trials. But I did what I needed to do in school. I ran hard, I trained hard, I studied hard.
Did you have days where you didn't want to do it? And if so, how did you overcome the complacency of sitting there on the, couch or doing something else and going and doing the thing? Or did you never doubt it?
Well, fortunately for me, I didn't have a couch, so I didn't have to worry about that. It's a really good, I honestly cannot remember when I was in high school, days when I didn't want to do it. Mm. I can remember days when I wanted to do it and couldn't. Like the first time I pulled a hamstring, I was running 10 300s and I'm down to the last one. And my friend goes, Pele, catch me. And I go chasing. I needed the motivation to get through this one last one. It's probably the fastest one I ran. And afterwards, I just felt this stiffness in my hamstring. That was on a Friday afternoon. And I went to school on Saturday to train. And I wasn't able to train that day because the field was being used by the cricket team. Cricket is like baseball, but only nicer. But there was a cricket match going on, so I couldn't use the field. But still, even if the field wasn't available, I couldn't run. I went there with the intention that I was going to train. And I just, my body, I could hardly walk.
Yes.
So I've had those days. When I was training for my third Olympics, I had a torn meniscus. My right knee swollen 1.5 times the size. And I live in New York. And I remember I drove down to Riverbank State Park. And I just sat on the side of the track. I could not get on it. We said the heart is willing, but the flesh is weak, So I've had those times where, in the early days, but there, I can though remember days, because all of us go through that when you may not feel like you want to do it. And also what I say to kids, especially high school kids, I'm like, and I use the analogy to studying, right? Like they are not the Olympics are like a big exam, and the training that we do is like you studying for your exams in school, right?
Yes.
And there are times when you don't feel as an athlete like training, but guess what? There's a dude on the other side of the world that's training, and you're going to meet him at the Olympics. And you're going to know who was training and who wasn't, who was studying and who wasn't, you know? So
Yes.
you have to make sure that, I get it, that sometimes our motivation wane, and you have to make yourself do it.
Well, it's interesting because, even part of this interview series, like talking to Ruben and now talking to you, and I thought some other Olympians as well, there's always a couple of things. One is, and I hear this with you too, like the vision was that clear where it's like, I know the exam I'm taking, I know where I'm going, I know what I want to achieve. And when I get to that place, I want to know I'm prepared and ready to the best of my ability, right? And sometimes I think that sounds cliche of like, oh yeah, prepare so you feel like you're ready, but that's it. Like when you talk to Olympians, it's like that's the reason, and I got to keep focused on that. And
yeah, for me, the worst feeling in the world is taking on a challenge, even if I succeeded, knowing that I didn't prepare to the best of my ability. Yep. Like failing sucks. Failing does not feel good. But if I know that, man, I gave my all, I can go to bed at night and I can feel better about myself. Yeah. Right. Because there's nothing more you could have humanly done.
Yes.
To get ready. Right. So
yes.
you give it your all and then let the chips fall where they may. It's when you go, waste time and just being idle and not being motivated, and then what do you expect?
Yep.
Right? You can't get great results if you didn't put in great effort.
You're exactly right. And how can you have high expectations if you haven't put in the work to get to that point, right?
Indeed.
So you're in the Olympics. You went 3 times. I'm curious, what is one of your greatest memories from the Olympics? Any of them? Yeah.
So the first one is, I think most athletes will tell you that's perhaps the one that had impacted them the most. And for me, especially being a newly minted Army officer, we're talking about 1988, when the world was still at the height of the Cold War. And we were told that basically everyone behind the Iron Curtain was evil, and that's what my training told me. And here I am, I'm in the Olympic Village, I'm in the game arcade. So yeah, I'm dating myself. Not the Cyber Shack,
Not the Cyber Shack, the actual arcade.
And I'm killing the Pac-Man. Yeah. Dude, I can play that Pac-Man like nobody else. And there's a dude to my left from East Germany, one from Poland. They're from behind the Iron Curtain. They're supposed to be evil. And you realize that, man, we're the same. We suffer from the same human frailties and foibles and have the same aspirations. They're there to compete and do their best for their country as I am. And so, that's the thing I love about sports in general, the Olympics in particular. You get to just enjoy and celebrate the humanity of others. You realize that there's so much more that we have in common than separates us, and it just comes. I don't know if athletes today get that sense in the Olympic Village, and this is why. This is pre-internet. So when you're in the village, you're in a way closed off from the rest of the world. Like you don't know what's happening outside, really. And so you're just in, I call it utopia. This make-believe world of humanity and human goodness, and the challenge and the fighting and overcoming and triumphing and suffering defeat, the pain of that. Yes. But it's all one humanity, and you realize, all of us feel that and share that. and then you go back to the real world kind of thing, So that's what stands out to me. It's just kind of amazing to, like, years after the Olympics, you're watching TV and you're like, oh my God, look at him, he's grown. Like, you met someone who was 17 at the Olympics. You see them 4 years later as a teenager versus a young man,
Yes.
Kind of thing. And so you get a chance to meet people who under normal circumstances you'd never meet.
That's amazing. And I think just that, especially Olympics, right? It's that there's a passion behind individuals who want to be in the Olympics, and it's a pride thing. You work many, many years to have, even in a lot of cases, one opportunity, let alone 3 for you. And, every person's number of Olympics is different, but I've heard multiple times, having not been an Olympian myself, that's the case, right? When you get in that Olympic village, it's like this, not that everyone's,
Yeah, there's I remember from Calgary too, I was in the video room. See how old I am? I'm watching
going from the arcade to the video room.
Exactly, the video room, right? You don't download it and stream it anymore. I quickly do this. And I happened to be sitting next to a young girl I'm pretty sure she was from Argentina. She was a skier. And she was watching her runs from that day. And she was like, oh, I'm not very good. And I'm like, no, don't I get it that because Olympians have very high standards anyway, right? And
yes.
And it's, I guess if you as the athlete, if you feel like you're not doing well, you have to say to yourself, I'm not doing well, so you can find what needs to be fixed. But I just remember having that conversation. Honestly, I don't remember what she looked like. If she walked in this room now, I would not recognize her. But I had that experience, and could relate to her and had that kind of that human connection again. Isn't
it interesting? I think sports, doesn't matter what you play, it's the common ground.
Yeah.
Where, again, I haven't played, or I haven't done the bobsled or the luge or sprinted because I'm slow as molasses. Like, I'm super slow, but like I haven't done those sports, but even without doing them, I understand them because it's more like what we deal with as athletes, right? What we're going through in the training and the self-doubt sometimes, and like achieving the dream and doing the work. And it's that common ground. And
the flip side of that story with this girl from 88 is in Nagano, it was after my race, and we're going in town, and I don't know how I ended up sitting like on the bed of this pickup truck with some guys from the US hockey team, and they had done terribly. And there was a dude there just sitting on the floor with his Olympic gold medal around his neck. Yeah, just like, I won this. Really? I think he was a speed skater. I can't remember from where, but it was
that's
like,
funny.
Yeah, and here we were. Like, I remember my great man saying to the guys from the US team, because they had done well and they trashed it, done poorly, and they trashed the place. And my great man was like, "Why did you guys trash the place?" And he looks at him and like, "You guys didn't do much better, did you?" Yeah, but we didn't trash the place.
Yes, but we didn't trash the place.
And then the guy sitting there with his gold medal, like, "Yeah, I won this today."
So interesting.
Yeah.
That's so interesting. Well, and so a couple more questions. And my gosh, I've got a huge list in front of me.
Yeah.
But talk to me a little about, because you were in a 4-man bobsled, correct?
I did both. I did both the 4 and 2.
4 and 2. And specific to the 4, this is a question for both, actually. When you're working with a team like that, right? It's one other person or multiple people. How did you guys work together to kind of maximize the ability of the team, right? So how did you make sure that, I don't know, everybody was aligned, we were doing the work, we had the same thing? Like, there's a lot that goes into teamwork to make sure, and you feel like when the other guy jumps in the sled with you that like he's done the work, I've done the work, like we're ready to go together. But that's an interesting dynamic in a team environment, right?
Yeah.
How did you manage that? How did you guys look at that?
So if you go back to training, it's a word you used earlier, vision. So you start with that, having this very clear vision of what it is that you're trying to achieve. And so that's going to drive each individual effort for starters, right? So,
Yes.
so to have a great team, you need, first of all, each person on that team to be as great as they possibly can be.
Yes.
And then as you start breaking it down now in terms of the roles, the driver's role is usually clear. That's the guy who's going to be up front and first one in the sled and so on and so forth. But then you're looking at the strengths of the other three guys, like who's the fastest, who's the most explosive, that kind of stuff. And that's going to determine, which side of the sled they push from and where they sit in the sled, kind of thing.
Yes.
Often the guy who's the fastest goes on the very back because he can run the longest as everybody else is going in.
Yes.
And then it's a really interesting dynamic, as I said, as you are pushing the sled to get on, to go down the track. You set up and, you practice these things, and every team has their own way of starting.
Yes.
But once you explode all those blocks, we are each in our own little world. It's really interesting. Like, you set up and you're together, you're a team and you're coordinated, and everybody, that all the other three guys are ready to push.
Yes. Yes.
You go through your count and you explode like together. Like that's key, to explode together. And you transition from that togetherness to being in your own world. Because now you are running as fast as your little feet will take you. You're not worried about the other guy right now. Like your job is to run fast, like as fast as you can. And then you get to that point where you're running basically as fast as the sled is moving, which means that you're not pushing anymore. You're just going for a run. And so and this is happening like this, right? So in that split second, like, okay, I'm up to top speed. It's time to get on. And so I was the second guy in the sled. I'm on, but I know that Michael is coming right behind me. It's like one stride behind me. And Chris is one stride behind him. It's just like, so you go from being together to being in your own world to again coordinating together. And you get on the sled, and like, especially for me, once I sit behind Dudley in the foreman, I have to guide Michael's legs around my thighs to make sure that he's situated in, and
yes,
then we just go for a run, go for the ride. Dudley, leads us down.
That's amazing. Is it your perspective of being the second in, going on that ride? What is it like? Like, can you describe it? Your driver's doing his thing, but is it just quiet? Is it loud? I don't know. Are you worried? Are you calm? Like, what's that ride like?
So when you're in the back, whether 2, 3, or 4, or in a 2-man, you're the brakeman in the back there, you're very aware of what's happening, what the driver is doing. Your head is down in the sled, but you know exactly which direction the corners go, how long they are, and as he gets on the corner, you can go, yeah, that was a good corner, or no, that wasn't bad, and you expect a bang. You just know, and you're in the back, powerless in a way, because that's not your role now. You're just going for the ride, but you can tell what's happening, what the driver is doing, how well he's doing down the run.
Was it scary at first, or did you just get used to it pretty quick?
But was it scary at first? Is a resounding yes. I mean, I was like, my first run, man, I didn't know what to do with myself. So when you start in bobsledding, you start from about halfway up. And you're sitting in the sled, and they nudge you off and you're going really slow, like maybe 30 miles an hour, but it feels like you're screaming down the track. And I remember before we went, as I'm sitting there, my helmet felt too tight, and then I'm choking. I loosen it. I'm like, no, it's too loose. I didn't know. I was so scared. And I remember saying to myself, if I die, I die, but I'm going. And by the third run, I was hooked. I was hooked. Still scared to death.
But I loved it.
And you just kind of, it's that thing in life, do the thing you fear. And they say the death of fear is certain. And what I know is that you are able to manage it better. You're still scared, but you're able to do it. And that I became a driver. So the difference there is that I feel like I have control over my own destiny. I'm the driver. I'm in control of the sled. It doesn't mean that I don't start out being scared. I'm definitely a nervous wreck. That's my thing. From the days I ran track, when I knew I was going to run, I was going to win, hands down. At the start, I'm nervous, but once it's time to go, the nervousness is gone. And I'm totally in charge, and I'm going for it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Nervousness is something that I think everyone deals with. I always say that, and they've done studies on this, right? The most successful Olympians, when asked by, when they shove a camera in your a microphone in your face and a camera, I guess, as well, they ask you, "Are you nervous?" And the most successful Olympians will answer, "No, I'm just excited," right? Because the body has the same physiological reaction if you're nervous versus excited, right? Yeah. So it's so interesting from a self-talk perspective, but we all deal with that nervousness, and you get the butterflies and sweating and all the things, right, that come with it.
Yeah.
How did you either deal with or overcome or that nervousness, or was it just knowing that as soon as I hit go, I'm golden? Was there certain self-talk or anything going on in your head to help minimize that?
I don't know if anything really minimized it. The positive self-talk was always there. And that is more to reassure yourself that you're going to do well. I mean, that I'm still nervous, but I'm like, I'm going to do well. I know I've done the work. Bobsled drivers do a lot of visualizing, and there are times when you're visualizing driving the track and something, you crashed. I'm like, no, I won't, because I know I've done this before. I've driven the track of, that kind of stuff. And and each sled is going and your numbers coming up. And the nervousness is really heightening in my mind. And then I'm on deck, and then I'm on the ice. I'm at the start, waiting until the other sled gets off. And I'm still nervous. And then they say the start is clear for Jamaica 1, which will be me. There's no nervousness now. It's work time.
Love that. Yeah, I think it's an acknowledgement of nervousness is okay. It's an okay feeling, right? As long as you understand the vision, where you're going, to your point, the positive self-talk, but probably more importantly, you've done the work to prepare yourself for that situation.
Yeah, and I guess, the positive self-talk, I guess, in a way helps the nervousness because it allows you not to become overwhelmed by your nerves because, again, you are reinforcing the fact that you did the work, you're prepared. And like I said, once they say the start is clear, it's really just time to throw caution to the wind, so to speak, to just pour your all into it. And, the competitive nature really reaches a crescendo. It's like, it's time to go, man. And there's no turning back. Let's do this.
I love that. Well, I've got about 50 other questions I could ask you, Devon, but I won't. I know we're being aware of time here. So, but one last thing, two last questions or one last little last word thing. But for people to connect with you, where can they best find you and connect with you and kind of see what you're up to?
Yeah, man. I like to say I'm the easiest guy to find. The easiest place is my website, which is my name, devonharris.com, devonharris.com. On like Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, it's official Devon Harris. On Facebook, it's Keep On Pushing. YouTube as well, Keep On Pushing always.
Big TikToker. I like it.
Uh-huh.
Well, I think too, we'll make sure all your links are in the show notes, Devon, so people can connect with you. And again, I highly recommend it. As we say, the reason we started this Masters of the Game series was, if you want to be the best, you have to learn from the best, right? And as you listen to Devon's, what he's talked about today and those themes, and pick up on those and understand like what it takes, you can take these things and integrate them into what you do to elevate your performance to the next level. Well, Devon, my friend, I can't thank you enough. I know we'll stay on for a minute after this, but please go check the show notes, connect with Devon, check out his website. If you're happen to need a keynote speaker to fire up your student athletes or company or anything who's listening, Devon is your guy for sure. So, Devon, thank you so much, and we'll hopefully talk very soon.